The president covering a lot of ground in his CPAC speech, and his America First approach really resonating.
There is no such thing as a global anthem, a global currency, or a global flag. This is the United States of America that I'm representing. I'm not representing the globe. I'm representing your country.
The crowd liked that one. Charlie Hurt is a columnist for the Washington Times. Katherine Timpf is a columnist for the National Review, and Jonah Goldberg is senior editor for National Review. All three of them are Fox News contributors. Jonah, let me start with you. When they talk about that contrast between President Obama said before, we're a global citizen over and over, and then you hear Donald Trump talking about the idea that you got to be kind of represent somebody first. You know, we're all for getting along with people, but there's no global flag, there's no global currency. It reminded me of sort of the struggle between socialism and capitalism, that in the end, what drives things are personal self-interest. And when you try and deny that, it doesn't really work out. What do you think?
No, I think that's true. I mean, I was a big critic of Barack Obama's cosmopolitanism. Cosmopolitanism means literally citizen of the world. I remember when he gave that speech in Berlin and talking about how we have to tear down all walls and all barriers between nations. I said, you know, it probably sounded better in the original Esperanto. And so I think that when historians come back and they look at this period, it's going to be increasingly difficult not to see the rise of Donald Trump as a reaction or an overreaction, depending on your point of view, to what Barack Obama was trying to do as president. He is sort of a correction for a lot of these sorts of themes that Obama tried to pull off that really don't speak to more than a few thousand elites who are interested in sort of going to Davos and being part of a sort of transnational order.
Yeah. Charlie, what do you think of all that?
Well, I think that Joan is probably right about that. But, you know, listening to his speech today, it was absolutely fascinating. Some of the biggest applause lines were those sort of more isolationist lines, like when we talked about killing TPP, and he talked about, you know, any pipeline that's made in the U.S. will be made with pipes made in the United States. But then there were a couple of other lines, like where he said, you know, presidents for the past 15 years could have gone to the beach and we would be better off today. That was a pretty direct shot at the last quote-unquote conservative president we had, George W. Bush, and the crowd loved it.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. You know, last year we saw sort of Donald Trump kind of in a hostile takeover of the Republican Party. But today, I feel like we kind of saw him complete that with they are absolutely, and this is the soul of the Republican Party.
It's interesting because this was the Never Trump crowd. I mean, that's who this was, conservative Never Trump, and they seem to be eating it up. Kat, I want to ask you about this one. This was Donald Trump on the First Amendment. Listen.
I love the First Amendment. Nobody loves it better than me. Nobody. The First Amendment gives all of us, it gives it to me, it gives it to you, it gives it to all Americans, the right to speak our minds freely. It gives you the right and me the right to criticize fake news and criticize it strongly.
Kat, what do you think about that? I laughed when I heard him say he loves the First Amendment. Then I realized, you know what? He'll say anything. So maybe he is a First Amendment guy. What do you think?
I also love the First Amendment. Very much support the First Amendment. And free speech, very important. But elsewhere in the speech, certain things that Trump said about the media, I mean, fake news, we get it, and there's a lot of places where he has not been covered fairly. But when he talked about not being allowed to use anonymous sources, I wondered what he thought about that in terms of free speech, because there's plenty of reasons to use an anonymous source, and then you also have the freedom to say, to be skeptical of, to say, anonymous source, fake news.
In the meantime, he's had a very busy week. Let's look at the timeline. I mean, you can see, we're going to roll it by. There are a million different things that he did this week. Jonah, can he keep it up, and do Democrats need to learn to complain faster?
Well, I think that he has busy weeks when it comes to sort of media messaging. When he gets into trouble, he changes the subject. We've seen this now for 18 months. He has these great photo ops that are very effective for getting out a message that he wants. But at the end of the day, these messages don't mean a lot unless you can get them translated into actual legislative policy that goes through Congress. And that is going to take some heavy lifting. It's very easy to wow the crowd at CPAC after winning this victory, and everyone's sort of relishing drinking Hillary Clinton's tears and all the rest.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you actually have to persuade Congress, and that's where his poll numbers matter a lot more, not just with the Republican base, but with independents and Democrats and the like, too.
All right, we got to run. I wish we had more time for you guys. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much. All right, what happens to the people who are deported before judges knock down President Trump's executive order on immigration, the court ruling that came down today?